and with One Chiropractic. We're having again with Dr. Richard Barwell, and we can't get enough. We've got a lot of people asking to hear from him again. And so our last session, we just kind of did a summary of where this series has gone as we're getting near the end of it. But I'm so excited about today's conversation because we've been alluding to this with a number all the way back to Dr. Hoffman, about the Neuro Infinity and how you actually started documenting. You teased a little bit of that in the last session about how you were able to real time show the effectiveness of the adjustment. And so, I kind of want to let people know kind of what you've done with this piece of equipment. And I'm going to put this disclaimer out there. In a perfect world, yes, everybody would have one of these things in their office. But that is not our intent in this. All right. So I don't want you to just check out thinking this is a big sales pitch, because it's not. What we want you to do is understand how this stuff works. And there's a percentage of you that will have this in your office because you want to really dig into this and really convert your practice to this way of thinking. And that's what this equipment is for. But as I've shared with you, even in the other conversations, our mission is not to push products or push services, but we want to educate you and show you, for those of you that really want to dig into this, there are equipment and things out there that can help you better communicate this to the world around you. So just don't get lost in this conversation because you think this is a sales pitch, because that's not what we're doing. But with that, Doc, let's dig in. Talk to us about your baby.
Okay, let me preface this by saying, I got to a point where I understood the role of stress in creating abnormal neurological patterns in the brain, which then fed downstream. And when they got to a point of threshold levels where the body couldn't tolerate anymore, it created signs and symptoms for the person to become aware of what was going on. There was like, oh my gosh. And then we started looking at the power of the adjustment to be able to change those patterns. All that was exciting and fun, but I came to a point where I realized that if we couldn't measure this thing with a viable, accepted piece of equipment used in the industry and health, that we were just doing the same old thing we'd been doing with making claims that we couldn't support. Right. And it was a dilemma. It was a total dilemma. My goal was just neurologically based chiropractic and moving it upstairs. But then I realized that I had to develop something. So we worked very hard at this. This whole thing is a 20-year battle. And what we were talking about in the last time about people starting to get it and things starting to happen, the big news, that's been 20 years of hammering away to get this thing changed.
Right.
So it's not just something that came up yesterday, and this thing's been around for a while. So let me start with this. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it, which has been one of the big problems about chiropractic. We have techniques out there that are phenomenal, specific upper cervical techniques that are phenomenal, other techniques that different types of measurements. But if you can't measure what's really going on, all we were left with, well, how do we know it works? How do you feel today, Mrs. Brown? Well, I feel better. See, it works. Mm-hmm. And that's not good enough. So here's the rest of this. If you can't manage it, then you don't know how to improve it. And I think chiropractic has been extremely lazy by falling back on just the fact that we get results and we do the same thing all the time. I mean, quite seriously, the challenges that are going on right now about removing neuro from neuromusculoskeletal is because of exactly this. We didn't bother to measure the neuro part, and we couldn't tell what was really going on. And so they said, well, let's just get rid of that and just talk about how you feel. And that's where we are with this battle that's going on now. Well, guess what, folks? Now you can measure it. You can measure it over a period of time, or you can measure it lifetime with viable pieces of equipment. And that's how I came to develop the Neuro Infinity. It's in its fourth or fifth generation right now, so it's continued to evolve over the years that we've done this. The story behind the development of it is another story for another day, because that's when I thought I was losing my mind. And every bit of money that I had managed to put into place to try to get this thing developed. So let's see what we've got. Here's the Neuro Infinity. And you'll notice it's spelled with an I on the end, not a Y. So if you go online and look for Neuro Infinity, you're going to go to a parent company in Canada. And that's the company that actually makes the hardware. But they make our software for us too. We hired them to, after many tries with other people, to do this. And we ended up with this piece of equipment. What you're seeing right there where it says Neuro That little piece of equipment right there that clips onto a belt is actually the Neuro Infinity. Those are just the sensors that are around it. And it takes like 15 minutes to do this test. There's no gowning that's involved with it. So if you're using, for instance, a substation, which is a good piece of equipment, but it's a piece of equipment that talks about something different than what we're talking about.
Right.
It doesn't talk about brain function. It talks about muscle activity, basically. Even if you're doing thermals, by the way, that's muscle activity in the capillary beds. So you're really measuring muscle activity, which is fine. It was, as a matter of fact, it was something that was needed at the time it came out. It was a good piece of development. You'll notice this little guy sitting there, he's having it done. You can notice how much pain he's in.
Yeah.
There's no pain involved with this. It's a very easy. You can do kids down to about 5 years old. And there's neurological patterns for children that are different at different ages. They're different from babies to small children to 6 years old to 12 years old. Those changes that happen within neurological function in the brain that you need to be able to look at and find out. Now, those people, you've got to listen to Dr. Laura Hansen. She'll rock your socks, I guarantee you. The incredible information from her as to neurological inputs from kids all the way through. So we developed this piece of equipment and put it out there so that we could start using it in chiropractic offices. Neurophysiological activity measurements. First of all, we've talked briefly about this. I talked about the cortical activities before. So that's what the EEG is going to look at. The 99% reproducibility. We've literally done people 2 years apart where they've done nothing, and you can literally take and put them on top of one another, the EEGs, and they're exactly the same. The only time you're going to get any changes long-term is if you change the hardwired brain patterns in the cortex. You're going to get lots of changes in the limbic system responses, because it's much faster to get responses. And that's why you see a lot of research done in chiropractic with things like heart rate and blood pressure and heart rate variability. Those things are all limbic system responses. But here's the part that I keep wanting to go back to all of it, from Dr. Sullivan to Dr. Hoffman. It's not about just the limbic system. You've got to be looking at the cortical patterns that drives the limbic system responses. And until you're doing that, you're not really looking at the whole picture. So we need to kick it upstairs and say, yeah, let's look at the limbic system, let's measure all of that stuff, but let's look at cortical patterns too. So limbic system responses, heart rate should be 56 to 66 beats a minute, should go up during stress and down during recovery. Respiration should be 6 to 12 breaths a minute, should go up during stress and down during recovery. Heart rate variability, that's the most confusing for most people. But here's the thing about just looking at heart rate variability with sitting in a chair, doing nothing, and having the heart rate variability taken. You're getting, just like an x-ray picture, you're getting a moment in time. I want to see what happens to heart rate variability during the stressors and recoveries, because there's a whole nother story that's told in that response level. If you get a bunch of very bad responses in the very low every time they close their eyes and relax, that's something going on in the subconscious.
Right.
That information is not available with most heart rate variability tests. Okay? Just so you know, the owner of HeartMath was with us one time at a display, and he was watching our testing that we were doing, and he's the owner of HeartMath, which has great programs. He came over to us after and said, I got to tell you something. HeartMath, my product over here is a toy compared to what you guys have got. So if you want good, accurate data that's dynamic, you've got to look for a piece of equipment that does that.
Right.
Sweat glands in the hands. They get moist under stress, and they should get less moist during recovery. That's a very fast-acting response. Thermal activity, extremity temperature should go down during stress and up during recovery. It's the reverse. It's the only one that's reversed. So we can measure these things. SEMGs, we know what muscle tone should be, and we particularly look at the traps because it's a defense muscle, and that tells us exactly what's going on. Also, bilateral blood pressure. Don't just do blood pressure on one side, because you can see if there's hemisphericity. Say bilateral weight scales, before and after every adjustment, phenomenal stuff. Your posture is a picture of your dysphonesis, and we went through that before. So posture is important. Taking a look at the posture and finding out, wow, what kind of distortions there are. And the one thing that we have not touched on in this thing is this also has a program in SEMG retraining program that is the most effective program I have ever seen based on pre and post x-rays for people with scoliosis and getting rid of the scoliosis by doing neuromuscular reintegration. So it's all there. We can do all of that. So here's what the chart looks like. We got color bars. And this is, I used the example here of heart rate. So you see the ideals are in that dark, the black line that runs between each one of those color bars. It should stay within those black marks. Okay, so it should go up during stress and down during recovery. And if you're actually doing correct breathing, you should be able to slow your heart rate down. So what are the colors? Well, the solid colors are different stressors. The very first one, that turquoise, was eyes open, followed by a gray, which is eyes closed. So that's a recovery. That's a stressor and a recovery. And that's our baseline. You're just sitting in the chair, sitting there with their eyes open, and then sitting there with their eyes closed. The green one is a cognitive challenge that the computer puts the person through and has them do a cognitive, a thinking challenge, and we see what happens to their heart rate. Just sitting in a chair doing this cognitive challenge, look what happened to the heart rate. It went up like it's supposed to, but it stayed within the normals. And then it dropped after when they sat with their eyes closed, relaxed. The dark blue is an emotional challenge, and then recovery of the gray, and then it goes, the physical is the pink. So it's a 3-minute breathing exercise, which is also the primary of the heart rate variability. But we're watching what's going on with that during all of them. But this is just the heart rate. So we want to see stressors and recovery. Pretty straightforward?
Yep.
So all I have to do, if you're a patient, and I'm showing you one on the left that we just examined, I'm saying that's the ideal response, and this is you. Do you see you have a problem here?
Yeah.
Pretty obvious, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the problem?
There's no recovery.
No recovery, and look at how high it is.
Right.
You're sitting in a chair doing these things, and it's over 80. You'll also notice it tends to flatline.
Right.
When you see a flat line like this, that means that your heart has lost its adaptability to stress and recovery. It can't tell the difference. And if we want to have good health, we have to have adaptability. We have to be able to adapt and recover and adapt. There's no recovery going on. Mm-hmm. And this is how simple the report is. Okay. Baron, you see the one on the left, that's the ideals, and you see yours on the right. You see you have a problem?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. It's too high and it doesn't vary. We need recognize that. We can help you with that. I'm done.
Right.
All you need to know as the patient is that there is a problem. You can see it, and I'm going to tell you we can help you with that.
Yep. Because
the primary thing in any patient's mind when they walk into your office is, can you help me?
Yep.
And if you don't answer that question, you fail them. If you think you can't help them, you got to be honest with them. Yep. Saying, I can't help you, I'm sorry. So everybody got this?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, heart rate variability. I've done the same thing here with heart rate variability. The one on the left is the ideals. The one on the right is you. Does yours look like the ideals? Yes or no?
No.
No, it doesn't. So you see you have a problem there.
Yeah.
Now, we can go into some depth if you want with this, but I think we've already covered some of it. But here's the thing. If you have lots of bars in the very low, like this person has, shouldn't be anything above 10. And you'll notice that the highest one was during the cognitive challenge. That tells me that every time that this person gets put under stress to make a decision, put under a cognitive challenge, their heart actually goes arrhythmic.
Huh.
That's an internal rhythm challenge to them. So putting this person under stress is not a good idea because they're going to end up having a heart attack. Okay? You'll notice in the high, all the columns are in the gray. So every time that they tried to relax, it didn't work. The sympathetics kicked into gear and the heart didn't slow down like it was supposed to. It went up. So things are reversed in this thing. That's not a picture of good heart health. And that's why it's important to be able to see dynamics in heart rate variability, not just heart rate variability.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay? Heart rate now. This is from the before. So now what do we know? We know that we have a person that's got a heart rate that's running up there at about 90 beats a minute, not varying. It doesn't slow down when he breathes out. Matter of fact, it gets more irregular. And we know that internal rhythm of the heart, the AVSA node regulation, that's the two pumps that go pump, 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 pump. They're not working together. When you see this kind of picture, this person is actually a candidate for a cardiac event. And my suggestion would be, if I'd seen even more bars in the high, I would have referred him to a cardiologist, like now. And this is so accurate that we had one of our clients in New Zealand had 3 people come into him with that type of a pattern within a month. He warned all 3 of them that they needed to see a cardiologist. 2 of them went and definitely got under care and got it under control. The 3rd one said, no, I don't need to. All 3 of them had a cardiac event, and the one that didn't go didn't make it. Within 1 month, he had this happen. Pretty wild, isn't it?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I'm going to drop it down now to look at what we see at the same time in respiration. Now you'll notice that these colors that are here on this chart, they're all the same pattern. They start with that turquoisey color and they end with the gray. And all it does is it tells us if we're looking at the green column in any of these boxes, that's what was going on during the cognitive challenge. If we're looking at the blue, it was what was going on during the emotion. If we're looking at the light grays, it was what was going on during the recovery. So it's all on one page, and we can just look around, and it's all done at the same time. It's a massive amount of information. So if you look down at the respiration rate on, I'm going to call it your chart, and if it is, you and I are having a long talk.
Yeah. I'm not claiming it, brother.
Yeah. You notice the respiration rate is high?
Yeah.
Does it look like the ideals?
Not at all.
Not at all. So you see you have a problem there?
Yep.
And then what I would do, and this is what I did when I was in practice when I was doing my exams, I didn't have this piece of equipment, unfortunately. I would circle in red everything that was a problem.
Right.
When you get finished with like all these circles in red in there saying we've got some work to do.
Right.
And now we've got things to monitor.
And it starts to explain why you're recommending the duration and the frequency, right? When you can visibly see all of these areas and how your condition is affecting so many different aspects of your health, it just starts to justify why I need to see a few times a week and why we're going at this for a few months.
Yep. And as you depose ones, you may find the heart rate's the same, but the heart rate variability is improved.
Right.
Well, great. Well, you can see what's improving, but you're still got a problem here to work with.
Right.
We're not, just because you're feeling better doesn't mean anything.
Yep.
So the respiration, again, is high and non-varying. And respiration is part of heart rate variability, as is heart rate. So it's important to look at those 3 things together to be able to see what's going on with it. Right. Also, what's important was the fact of whether they were an upper respiratory breather or not. So we looked at the traps. In this case, they're not. If they were, on the right-hand side in the SEMG, the pink columns would be real tall because they'd be elevating the shoulders to breathe.
Right.
So we can see what their breathing patterns are like. We can see how it's affecting their heart rate variability. We can see how it's affecting the heart rate. We can see their adaptability to stress and recovery, whether these patterns are stuck in there or not. This is just all limbic system. Hand temperature, same thing. Should go up during recovery and down during stress. Look how cold the hands are. This should be 93 degrees. They're 10 degrees below ideal. We had one office that was doing tests pre and post with a thermometer on the finger, and they saw a 16-degree change in hand temperature pre and post adjustment.
That's insane.
16 degrees warmer after the adjustment. This is the stuff we should have been doing all along.
Right, right.
Skin conductance. Again, look at the skin conductance on this person compared to the ideal. And we have a problem because it's way down there. This is a chronic stress pattern. This is so bad that it's way down below and it's not adapting. And it's literally shut that down. These people are going to have dry hands. If you're shaking hands with somebody that feels like you're shaking with a dry brick,
right.
You shake somebody's hand and you feel that, you know that they've been under stress for a long time, or they're bricklayers.
Yeah.
You know, and you can tell right a bit. That's why I recommend that every time the patient comes in, you shake hands with the patient. You feel whether their hands are warm or cold, or whether they're wet or dry. That tells you a whole bunch right there. You do a pulse and on them for 10 seconds, multiply times 6, you got the pulse rate. And those should be part of your SOAP notes for neurological findings.
Right.
Every adjustment. Pre and post bilateral weight scales. Now, I'm going to say this, and I really, this is not the magic bullet or the super widget. The NeuroInfinity, if you're suffering in your practice and you're not surviving in your practice, buying the NeuroInfinity is not going to save your practice. And we don't want it done like that. We don't want people taking these things out and not using them. They need to be using them on every patient. Chiropractors tend to be a little lazy. Okay, but if you're in that kind of trouble, you need to talk to Bob Hoffman. That's who you need to get involved with. Not buying the NeuroInfinity to begin with. Get your head straight, get your conversation straight, and then you'll be all right using this thing. But to buy it as the magic bullet, please don't.
Yeah, nope.
Okay,
that's great advice.
So that's what you see with the limbic system. Now I'm going to show you the whole chart. Well, not quite. What we haven't covered in this is we haven't covered the EEG. And the top part of that report that you just saw on that past one with all those 6 boxes is below this. And we can do both hemispheres. Remember, all of this is done at the same time in 15-minute schedule. And the staff does it. I don't want doctors doing this. We train the staff to do this. The doctors I need to train how to read this. Okay. And actually, this is the only part they need to learn because the rest of it they already learned when they were at school.
Right.
So this shows us the ideal patterns of what should be going on in the cortex during stressors and during recovery. And so we can now do the same thing with that. We can compare what's going on in that hardwired system and why these people are having their problems. So cortical brainwave patterns are the only area not taught in chiropractic college. And these ones represent the hardwired learned experiences that drive the limbic system responses. And that's the point I was making before. If you're not going to be looking at the EEG, you're not going to get those long-term changes that you'd really like to get because you're really only addressing that limbic system responses, but you're not changing the wiring pattern.
That's awesome.
Here's what it looks like. This is an Idealist chart. This is a stress response evaluation report from the Neuro Infinity. It's after a 15-minute test, and it generates this chart right here. So it's all on one page as to what we want to look at. Now, what we do with this is an Idealist. We recommend you make this as a poster. And so you put it on the wall so you can say, Mrs. Brown, does your EEG look like this? Or does your heart rate variability look like this? Yes or no? And the minute they say no, that's all they need to know. They don't need to do what I've been doing with you here.
Right.
They just need to know that you know. Okay? This is also a report we get. And this is a patient report. We tried to make things a little simpler, and we did it on 5 areas that we could do it. You can't do it on EEG because that's already percentage of power, and it's very hard to do percentage of percentage.
Right. Right.
It doesn't work. So heart rate, if you'll notice under heart rate, it says S and R. So the first column under the S is what your heart was doing during the stress times. And under the R is what your heart did during the recovery. The 0, 1, 2, 3, minus 1, 2, 3, those are standard deviations of normal. So what we see here is this person's heart was over 2 standard deviations outside of normal or ideal during stressors. And how was the recovery?
Yeah, non-existent, really.
Not good. See, and it's that simple to look at.
Yeah.
They should be in the green and above that one. That's what you want. How's the skin conductance doing?
Yeah, fabulous. Red's a good color, right?
Absolutely, and no recovery whatsoever.
Yeah.
So this gives you an idea of where retraining could be put into play, because along with this, we have biofeedback for all of that limbic system responses, biofeedback training programs built into the Neuro Infinity. And for the EEG, we have neurofeedback retraining programs to help change the pattern. So look at this. This is going to be a fast one. Here's a patient on the right side, and this is the ideals on the left. How's the EEG compare? Now, we only did one hemisphere with this person, so it wasn't like they were half dead.
Right.
They weren't missing half a brain. We only did the one.
Okay.
So how does it compare?
It's
a mess.
Yeah, it's way lower.
Yeah, and you notice the gray columns aren't taller like they should be in one area, and the solid ones under beta should be taller. They're not.
Yeah.
This is just a mess. This is really chaotic. This is somebody that's in big trouble. This is like post-traumatic stress in action. That's how bad that is. It's scrambled eggs. So their hardwired system is not working good. Well, if their hardwired system's not working good, what do you think is going to happen down the limbic system?
Right.
And look at it. Look at the heart rate.
Yeah, that's a mess. Yeah.
It's up at 100 and goes up to about 110. During recovery, it's reversed to what it should be during normals.
Yeah.
Look at the heart rate variability. It's terrible. This person is a candidate for a cardiac event. This is wild. Look at the skin conductance, chronic stress pattern. Look at the hand temperatures, sympathetics, lowered cold hands. Look at the respiration, high rate and very little variation. Look at the shoulders, left side, tighter than the right side, and an upper respiratory breather on the left side. When they're breathing, they're elevating one side only. So you can see we got a bunch of information. This person's in serious trouble. And this patient should be under care for a year. Now you've got justification.
Yep, that's right. That's awesome.
And that's the power of the Neuro Infinity. And we finally realized that we had something here that would be exactly what I thought that the profession was looking for. I never had planned to be in the business of selling equipment. That was the last thing on my mind with this thing. But once I realized that we had to do this, I had to make the investment in the time and the effort and energy to try to get the profession to look at this and to start using this as their guides to helping people. Because when you change these patterns, you change people's lives.
Yeah. And I've obviously been friends with you and on this journey with you for a few years now. So I know a number of guys that have purchased this equipment, put it into their practices. And, it's just amazing to me, the power of knowledge, right? But human nature is to learn what we need to learn, to get done what we need to get done, and then we're done learning, and we just recycle the knowledge we already have. And this information and knowing really what's going on and being able to track the improvement over time on things that matter, right? Not just skin temperature, but you're looking at heart rate variability, the heart rate itself, the muscle activity and the shoulder movement. I mean, all these different things, and it changes the way you communicate to your patients, and it increases your confidence. So I've seen firsthand people that have put this into their practice and how, one, it's grown their practice significantly because they have that justification and confidence in making the recommendation. But it also changes the way the patients view their own health and how they start working. So it's awesome stuff, Doc. Thank you so much for giving us that detailed look. We're going to come back with Dr. Barwell here in the next session and continue this conversation about really where we're going from here. We want to wrap this series up, right? We want to give you the information you need to be able to make good decisions in the way you communicate, the way you see yourself, and the way you operate in the space around you. So, we're loving this process, but what I love about the Neuro Infinity is it ties it all together in a way that you can actually explain to people what's going on and what you're doing with your adjustment. So, yeah, go ahead.
I just say if people want information, please, you can contact.
Yeah, I'll put it in the email. So in the base of the email, we'll put your website, your information, and
give her a call and she'll send you information.
Yep, that'll be awesome. Well, everyone, hopefully you've enjoyed this. It's giving you a perspective of what we're measuring and how it works. And we'll be back with you tomorrow. God bless.